We'll first have some announcements. You probably went over some of these. So we have Arkansas Beekeepers Fall Conference. Brian, can you slow down the speed, please? Then we have here the 5 Library Bee Project, Harvesting Honey. I don't know if many of you have harvested. I have only 3 or 4 people wanting to harvest the extraction equipment this year. So tomorrow somebody will pick it up. So if somebody wants to extract still some, you can do it. The temperature is high enough. Next week we are in the 93s, so the honey should flow properly. Just let me know. Text me. Okay, it should be on the web page, and then we organize the pickup. Family picnic, very important for the next October meeting. We have a lot of different items on the program, like honey tasting, moisture content, smoker contest. Last time at Lipa, of course, won that contest. This year we learned how to do it, okay, and we will give him a run for his money. Look at the Ivory Park Pavilion, 3:45 on the Sunday. The Saturday was a home game over here, so we moved it to the Sunday. And then we have a very nice late afternoon to get a social interaction and do a lot of nice games. We will take care of the meat, but you can bring some side dishes to the event. Does anybody play music? What do we want to hear at? A guitar or?
Live music would be fun. If anybody wants to do live music at the picnic, let us know.
Okay. Do we have any other announcement, Brian? Okay, then the committee. Okay, so in the picnic, we will also try to vote for the next year officers on the board. Here you have all the names. If you are interested to be on the board, you can also throw probably your name in the hat. I'll talk with Maureen. But these are the persons that have presented themselves for 2023. Okay? What else, Brian? And then we come back to this Beekeepers Fall Conference that we have seen already. Okay, we have here now 2 beekeepers. In Spanish you say Javier, but he says Xavier from the X-Men, right? Okay. And we have Roy. So we are going to have a panel and discuss how to feed the bees. But anybody that wants to chip in and mention their proper experience in doing this, please go ahead so that we have really a 2-way track. Ryan, can you start the presentation?
We need the lights off in the front.
We can probably do that. Okay, Roy, you want to mention something?
Hi guys, I'm Roy Duncan. I am the Northwest Arkansas representative for the Arkansas Beekeepers Association.
Oh, go ahead. I don't know what I'm going to do with too many hands here.
Clear.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. So you guys know we are having our fall conference this year again, and we've got new officers, and so one of the things that we're doing with the Arkansas Beekeepers Association is we're trying to tailor what we're doing toward the individual beekeepers, okay? In the past, they got a little heavy one way or the other way, they tell me, but I'm happy to be there anyway. The fall conference is September 23rd and 24th, Friday and Saturday. The last Friday and Saturday of the month, okay? If you look at the next week, Fridays in September and October's in Saturday, so we're going the week before. I've got applications. We're going to have a honey judging contest. It's going to be, this is going to be over at Mountain View, Arkansas, okay? Not Mountain Home, but Mountain View. Okay, so you call and get reservations for lodging for Friday night, and by Saturday afternoon, we're going to be done, and you can go home. With the honey judging contest, we even put out different colors of honey. What category you want to be in. So bring your honey jar of your best honey and enter the contest. Okay? Then, because I'm the state representative and I'm all over the place, a couple of other things that I want to bring up. Over in Joplin, I know it's not Arkansas, but it's close. There's a beekeeping club up there that's having their 4 states beekeeping conference. Okay? If anybody would like to know more information about that, I think we've got this right here. Okay? I've got this brochure from them. It's the only one I could get. But if you would like to take a picture of this and run up to Joplin, I'll have it on the table somewhere. And is that all right? Then you can take a picture of that, and then you'll have a copy of your own. Next thing is, who knows about the EPA? Okay, Environmental Protection Agency. There's a lady that is based in, I think it's Dallas. She contacted me because I'm part of the Arkansas Beekeepers Association. As I go around to different clubs, I'm telling them that the EPA wants to know, do you think that you've had bee losses as a result of pesticides being sprayed?
Yes.
Now, in the middle of town, yes, I know, but I don't know where it might come from. I don't have any of that kind of information. I've got cards. If somebody would like to take a card and turn around and just read, fill out the information if you want. The EPA is interested in finding out what kind of spray we have. If you know location, if you know the content rules, that kind of thing, you put it on there. You don't know a lot of stuff, but you know you get a significant kill. Okay, more information. So I'm glad to hear that the EPA is on our side on this one. Okay, I'll put these over here also.
So,
That's the pink card with the flower on it.
so I have a question.
We'll make it easy.
We live out in Huntsville, and this summer, we have only had our property, we've only been there 3 years, and they came through the electric power line. They came on our property without notifying us that they were going to be there and sprayed the easement for the power line.
Right in front of the bees.
Yeah.
Right in front of the bees.
Right, yeah, they went past the bees and they sprayed right next to the bees, all the way down the power line easement.
That's what they did, it hurt you.
We've lost a hive. We don't know if it was a drought from that or, we don't know what the
Sure.
cause was.
Okay, you take one of these cards, you just take one, fill it out and send it in to the.
You can write the Powerful Light Company a letter and tell them not to spray and they won't.
Yep.
Yeah, we found that out now.
Yeah, you have to get,
Now that you lost everything?
Well, I mean, we didn't know that they were gonna come out and do that,
Right.
Oh.
so,
Send them a letter every year.
All
Yeah.
right, great, well, that's all the announcements I've got. Any questions for me? Okay, great.
Okay, then, let's start. You keep the microphone on.
Okay, right.
Feeding honeybees.
Talking about honeybees. All right, Dave Chief. I learned a lot from Dave Chief. The guys at Table Club. One of the things Dave told me a long time ago, was that you ask 4 different beekeepers the same question, you're gonna get 4 different answers.
6 different answers.
So, I'm just a personal beekeeper. I say personal because I get enough honey, maybe to give to friends, maybe to sell to a few people, that kind of deal, but this year's been tough. Does anybody else have a tough year? I know, I guess so, everybody else has had a flourishing year, right? Anyway, when you talk about feeding, you know, there's a lot of different ways people do things, okay? I'm beginning to feed, okay? I've got feeders set up on my hives, and this basically is what I do, okay? This is just a little, you can use 1x4, you can use 1x6, you can use whatever you want, okay? But I drilled a hole in it, the size of my lid, okay? And I filled the quart jar full of my feed, 1-to-1 feed right now. And then turn it upside down, let it drip a little bit, and then I put it in that hole. Now that hole is over my inner cover, okay? Now this is one I had laid in the garage. I'm using all my other inner covers. But this is an old one. But I had 3 on it last year because I had a monster hive. I knew they were gonna take that feed real quick. Okay, so this is what I used on that one. The other ones, I just used one hole, okay? And then I put it over the hole in the inner cover so that the bees can come up through it. Okay? Well, I learned the hard way that what I have to do is, when I've got a fresh one filled, put the lid on, make sure it's good and tight, and then I turn it over and let it drip. It's gonna drip a little bit. And I drip it over the inner cover. The bees can go and get it. Then after it's finished dripping, I put it over the hole that I want to put it on. We use this one. And then I put the box on it, and I put the inner cover on it, and I put the lid on it.
This is why one of the ways to feed the bees.
This is one way out of how many ways to feed bees. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. Yes, sir.
So you put that inside a deep section,
I
an inner.
use a medium works good.
Okay, for a quart, a medium.
Whatever size you need to
Okay.
cover it, yeah.
I use all mediums. I don't have any beefs. I decided a long time ago, why, you got beefs, you need a medium frame. What do you got? You got your beefs. Say, oh, okay, gotta go back over to the shed and get, I just made it all the same. Questions? Now, later in the year, well, here, let me show you this. This, I've got a long hive. I'm experimenting with one of those long hives. So I made this just a little holder for that jar. Put that in there. And then the bees can crawl underneath and get what they want. And then we go on. You can use this with a lime straw. You can use it with the long hives. You can use it with whatever.
Top
Yes,
bars,
sir.
I know.
What do you do to your lid? How do you make your lid?
This lid,
Yes, sir.
okay, all this is the lid off the jar that it came with. And make sure that you take your lid off before you do this. Put it down on a board or something, and get a nail punch or just a nail, and then see all the little holes, just punch holes in it. And that's all you need. Then, put it back on, and I had to make sure it was sealed before I went ahead and did all this. So I got it good and tight. It wouldn't leak any water. I said, okay, that's a good lid. Okay. And then I punched all the holes in it. Now I'm ready. Fill it up with my sugar water, my feed, whatever I'm doing. And then put it on, close it all back up, and I don't have to get in my hive for a while. Okay.
So you're feeding now?
I'm feeding now. The reason I'm feeding now, we were in Garth. We got so dead come hot. Where are the flowers? The Lord said, let them not be reading rain.
Waiting on the rain.
You don't want to make flowers.
But this year is also a very atypical year, because normally August is bone dry, July is dry, August is dry, in September, it's also always mostly dry, but this year we had a lot of rain in August, 3 rains. So there's no pollen, there is some nectar flowing. So I had a problem that when I wanted to extract, okay, and I extracted twice this year, the bees were already filling up the supers and they were not kept, okay? So I probably will leave 1 super on each hive and let them go into the winter with it, okay? Because I can't take it off, right?
Right. I didn't get much honey this year because the bees weren't filling out all the frame. They weren't capping all the.
I got 400 pounds with 10.5 hives.
Wow.
Yeah. And you guys, many of you guys have visited my garden. My evolias were fantastic this year.
I'm gonna have to get next to him and figure out what he's doing.
Okay, but anyhow, honeybees collect nectar, pollen, and water to create 3 nutritional foods. Okay? Honey, bee bread, and royal jelly. Okay?
So wanted to put some numbers in here just to crunch on, because you're thinking the bees have to go out and, because the workers have to go out and forage for these items for the hive to have the energy to create it. So basically 1 milligram of honey contains 12 joules of energy. If you're operating joules, then a full honey stomach is roughly about 30 milligrams. And so therefore it can potentially produce 500 joules. And so when you get into that much potential energy that the worker can have on a full stomach heading out to forage, you go down and you say that they can fly for about 34 miles before actually fully running out of energy. Of course, naturally they should return to the hive with what they've collected and kind of re-up before going back out. But and so also, so we're getting into feeding the bees, the kind of thing of why we may have to, workers burn 11.5 milligrams per hour, and drones, even though they don't forage, they still are using energy and they get fed from the collection in the hive, and so they burn 14 milligrams per hour just existing and flying around.
So nutrition for bees, so pollen combined with nectar and honey and fermented with lactic acid, bacteria is used to pack comb cells with bee bread. So it's very important that when we feed the bees, we also need to realize we need to have pollen. Nurse bees convert bee bread into complete food called royal jelly, white liquid. Yeah, and this is fed along in the first 3 days and completes with the entire larva stage. Okay, how much honey reserves need a colony going into the winter? So this is a little bit the information that I got from the internet. I use in the top one that says an average beehive needs around 400 pounds. And I think I'm using that in Arkansas. Okay, so that is 1 medium full super, and then in the bee brood box, I probably also have 3 or 4 or 5 frames with a lot of honey. Moderate climates, they say 60 pounds, and in extreme winter zones, probably in the north, they go up till 90 pounds or 2 medium supers. Roy, any comment on this?
Looks good.
Looks Okay, why do we need to feed in the fall? Mostly, too much honey was extracted and not enough winter reserves. So everybody will need to evaluate how much honey you want to extract from the supers. And like I mentioned, I like to have at least 1 super on top of each hive, so that I don't need to feed a lot to the bees. Poor autumn flowering to replenish reserves. This year, again, we had 3 times a lot of rain in August, so I would say this is the first year, maybe in 10 years, that I see that in my area of Springdale, we have an autumn flow. And I hope that in the next week we still have some more rain coming, because that will support the hives tremendously. support weak hives, late nukes, small swarms. And then when you have weak hives and you identify that now in September, early October, maybe it's already too late, try to combine these hives that are too weak and make a strong one and feed them. Okay? What to feed bees mostly? Javier, you wanna?
Oh, sure. So, when we get to the feeding, pretty much the ratio rule of thumb is a 1-to-1, and that's the white sugar to the water solution. I'm actually using organic cane sugar in a 1-to-1 just to try something different. But most of the time in our research hives, we use that 1-to-1, and of course that is for them completely to use just energy, to get energy to go out and forage for the good stuff, because you don't want them storing that in the honeycombs, especially if you're pulling off honey. And then of course in the late summer, you do a 1-to-1, but with protein padding. And of course, that those extra proteins help that queen laying, and it supports when the supers have been taken off to extract, and even the young bees for the winter. So again, you give them that extra boost on a different part of the season to kind of keep them going and keep them above operation versus kind of dipping and coming back up to regulation. And even in early October, that's when you really want to do a 2-to-1. It's probably best for the accelerated storage of the energy reserves for the colder periods of the year. Up here in Arkansas, I think that would pretty much apply in around October time versus like up north, Minnesota, North Dakota, things like that.
Any questions on this line?
Is there any chance, I mean, can you change that ratio at all at different times of the year?
Well, you probably will, X-Man, you first.
I think it wouldn't hurt. Depending on what your hive needs are, how deep, is it 1 deep, how good is it been producing? Is it healthy on its own, or does it have, small pest influence that kind of can stress them out and give them that kind of nervousness? And so with augmenting the ratio, I'd have to say, it wouldn't hurt, but the 1-to-1 has pretty much been a good improvement in the 2-to-1 to kind of keep a stable performance, if you will.
So what do you consider late summer?
Ooh, what is Arkansas late summer? Because I was keeping that accent.
Yeah.
Now?
Yes.
This is late summer. Okay, yes.
Roy, you have a comment?
The other thing I want to say, guys, is I was told when I first started out that one of the sugar syrup is kind of like nectar in the flower. Okay? So when the bees are collecting the nectar, they've got plenty of time before it freezes up and real cold hits, so that they can go ahead and dehydrate that nectar in the comb and then cap it when they're ready. Okay? The 2-to-1 is more like the honey that's already in the comb. Okay? Because it's got a higher sugar content. So you can, I like that. I heard that when I started out, and I thought, well, that makes sense. Now I can kind of decide for myself on how my bees are doing, how my climate in my area is doing, about what I want to do. Okay? So if I have to feed in the middle of the winter, say we get a nice warm January week, okay, and I want to feed, I'm not going to feed 1-to-1. That's going to put too much moisture in the hive. Okay? Because it's going to freeze again. Okay? Listen.
For all three of you or anybody, first year beekeeper, all my colleagues have medium supers full of honey. The second super, they're not doing much with it. But with this flow we've had, with this rain we had in August, it's going real well. They've all got nectar, they're all making honey, they got pollen in there. I'm not feeding yet. And we don't intend to take anything off of the size because we've been told over and over, first year, give them all the honey, the supers don't take anything off. So everybody, have you thought about feeding it yet? Does that sound like we're on the right track?
It depends upon your locality. I'm in Rogers.
Yeah, I'm right here in Springdale.
But you guys are in Springdale, so if you're from Fayetteville, you've got different things happening in your apiary. Is going to be different from mine.
I'm a mile and a half from wind, so we're the same.
So you guys need to talk.
He's my mentor, actually.
Oh, good. Like Dick Chief lives down there in Lowell. He's supposed to leave.
If I had a question, go Michael, call.
Well, sure.
Mr. Beachy, yeah, you bet. So, find somebody, you go just kick the ideas around them, and based upon your climate, your situation, what's been happening in your area, you can make decisions.
And you need to base it on the hives too, because I've got 5 hives, and I've got one that I've needed to feed, and the others are keeping up.
Okay.
And so you need to base whether you need to feed based on what's going on in your hive.
Sure, you're a good beekeeper. You're familiar with what's going on in your house.
Right.
Very good.
Okay, right, next slide, yours. You already mentioned a little bit. Oh.
Just adding to what Roy said about the feeders, when it comes to in-hive feeding, government interest feeders, your mason jars, which is one solution, that's pretty much gonna get you every time. What I like to do is monitor when I do start feeding, how quickly they take down that jar. Usually, if they're not starving and I'm feeding to kind of maybe give them a boost, if it lasts about 5, 6, 7 days, I'm good. But if they're draining that jar in like 3 days, then I know they're hungry, there's definitely a problem, and I need to make sure that I'm feeding them more consistently to hopefully get them through whatever month it is, whatever season it is. But the thing about feeding that I don't really want to have, the particular bees I have, is I don't want them to get hooked on it in the sense to where they get lazy and like, well, where's our magical jar of feed? We don't really want to go out and forage 3 miles or 3-mile radius around the house. Bring us a jar. So to kind of keep them in their natural ways, I might try to feed them once a week for a certain period of time, then kind of wean them off maybe once every 2 weeks. And then by then, hopefully, they're in that pattern of they've got enough storage built up to where they've got energy to pull from the hive and to bring in the forage. Yes, sir.
Do any of these feeders cause robber bees to come and harass?
Robbery. No, I'm talking about
Robert, what I normally do is I close off this, so that the entrance
Say
is on the
reduce
other
it.
side of the opening, okay? And I make a small opening, right, so that 1 or 2 bees can go in at the same time. I don't have the experience that this will induce robber bees. The thing what I worry most with this is, first thing, it will take probably 2 to 3 days before the bees find this sugar solution, okay? And then they start throwing it down, and it can be very fast, can be 1 quart in a day. The other thing is you need to watch for fungus that start growing on the inside of the jar, because when sun shines on it, it's a nice
Ferments.
medium, it warms up, okay? So at 100 degrees Fahrenheit with a lot of sugar, it's ideal for fungus. So then you take it off and you throw the sugar water away and you wash it, and I always use a little bit of chlorine, a few drops, okay, to have that inside of that bottle, well, let's say sterilized almost, okay? And then I refill it, put it back on the hives.
So you put that in the front of the hive and then have the reducer?
Yes, yes. I made the normal reducers that you buy that come with the hive. You don't have enough opening to put in the support for the jar. Okay, so I made my own, and I drilled a big hole, which is basically the opening to get into the hive. Okay.
Instead of chlorine, do you know if food safe sanitizers would be safe?
Could be, but chlorine, I only use a few drops, okay, per bottle. I shake them well, and then I probably, when I have 10 bottles, I use that solution for 5 bottles, and then I replace it. So you need to smell a little bit the activity of your chlorine, but later on I just clean it out with water, and then I put my sugar solution in the bottle. So just watch. Adam.
Yeah, on the previous slide, can you go back to that? The 1-to-1 sugar syrup is also a stimulant. So the bees get more active when they're being fed that, and that causes the queen to lay more eggs. So in the early spring, feeding that 6 weeks before the honey flow will create more bees for the honey flow. It's 3 weeks that it takes them from egg to adult bee, and then about 3 weeks before that adult bee is a forager. And then the same thing is true in the fall. In the late summer, you might want to feed that 1-to-1 again to stimulate a little bit of brood production so that you have a bunch of young bees going into the winter.
What's the pros and cons of the feeder that you got? What about a community feeder?
I was just about to mention that. Yeah, with finishing out the robbing with the jar, a lot of times I see robbing as if when you finish your solution, it kind of got to get a little swirl and then turn it over to have kind of like a vacuum seal to see that drip. But if you got lids that are old and the holes are too big and you got more of a rush, I mean, within a day, you might have a pool of that solution just sitting down and it traps ants really quickly. And that can also kind of incorporate robbing, especially if you have a lot of hives kind of right beside each other and there's just this big sure sources just kind of outside the jar spilled out. And so as long as you keep track of how your lid's doing and how that net flow is, that can kind of definitely keep back on the robbing. With community feeders, what I've learned keeping our research apiaries, they're great because you can feed a lot of bees in one area at a central location. You're not having to set up this at every hive. It can save money, things of that nature. But I think the cons kind of outweigh it in the sense that it is a community feeder. You've got bees and other insects coming to that one area. They could be exchanging with roll small hive beetles, any type of fungus or bacteria, and taking it back to their respective hives that might not have been infected before. And so, and then if you don't keep an eye on it, if you're pollen feeding and it's raining real bad and that feeder, usually the big plastic ones kind of work best, if water's got in there, it really start to mess up the ratio and have that pollen really doing something funky. And then you have bees going out there partaking in that, it can also induce a problem. So I think community feeders are good if you have a large apiary and don't have the time to kind of individually take care of each hive. But the more entrance hive and in-hive feeders you have, that more secure, in my mind, the more secure thought that, okay, I know what's going on and I kind of have this control area of what feed's going out and who's partaking in.
So the going back to, I guess it's Roy's feeder inside the hive,
Mm-hmm.
does that induce too much moisture in the hive during the winter or what?
I take my feeder off when it really gets cold.
Okay.
I'm done. Okay. Just because I don't want that moisture in the hive.
Okay.
I want them to be able to get rid of the moisture, because that'll kill hive.
Right. That's why I'm asking it. What temperature do you think about taking the internal feeder out?
When you say freeze.
Okay.
When it gets that cold, it's gonna be cold, okay? And I don't wanna take a chance on the bees. Big Cheek,
Yes,
what do you think about that?
for feeding, I use freezer bags.
Freezer bags.
Put a 2-gallon freezer bag, put a gallon of water in it, sugar water, and then put it on top of your frames.
You betcha.
Cut 2 little strips of holes in it with a box cutter, and the water won't run out, but the bees will get in there and clean every bit of it out.
You bet. Okay, what he's talking about, say this is a freezer bag, okay? This is really a palm pad, but just imagine, play with me here. This is a freezer bag, okay? You open it up, you pour your feed in there, you seal it up, try to get as much air as you can, get it good and sealed, and then take your inner cover off, put it right on top of the frames, okay? Or if that makes you a little bit nervous, put it on top of your inner cover. But make sure you've got a hole opening for the bees to come up and get it. Take a good sharp razor blade, cut an X in the top of that bag, okay? All it's gonna do is open up that bag, okay? You don't have to cut it way around so that it's gonna spill all in your hive. The bees, guarantee you, Dave Cheek told me this, and I tried it, and it works.
You can
bees will-
build
There'll be
a
a-
frame to raise up the top too, so that the bag will just sit there and can be fuller too. Just
Right.
have a little 1.5 inch raise on it, so.
You can do that.
There'll be an air bubble on that, in that bag, and you make them slits where the air bubble is.
Right, right.
Right.
This one. There you are, that's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Ed, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what you were saying about community feeding. Your points were perfect. The only other thing that I would add, community feeding does the opposite of what Carrie was saying. She's looking at her hives and deciding which one needs feeding. The bees that are gonna get the most in your yard, let alone the bees that come from someplace else, are the ones that don't need it.
Right.
So if you have a weak colony, you need to feed inside.
Right.
Great point.
What happens when you harvest your honey? Your extractor, all your equipment, all your empty hive, all your empty frames. You put them outside, let the bees come and clean them up, right? I do. Put your frames back in the hives?
I'd stack them on 1 or 2 hives.
Okay. So what I do, I've found that promotes rotten. If I get those and get that stuff close to where my bees are, they're fighting for days. So what I do, I've got my area over here. My house is here. I go clear back over here, as far away from my hives as I can. And I put the equipment out there, let them clean it up out there, where they're not being drawn to my hives. I learned that from Dave. You guys got a great resource today, Chief. Sounds like you've got some people in here that are really good. So take advantage of your membership. They'll help you out.
Will you make some comments on this one?
Oh, yeah. Here you've got a deep brain feeder, okay? You can get them in medium size, whatever. I don't use this because I spill the sugar down in my hive, okay? That's just me. You guys may like it. Maybe just great for you guys. Over here, what is that? Loaf of sugar. That's a loaf of sugar, okay? I tried this stuff this last year, and it seems to work pretty good. This stuff is called Hive Alive, and it was sold. You'll have to get on the internet where in the world you can get it. I had to go clear to Wisconsin and order it out there. But there's another one. You can use the sugar. First year I was out here with beans, I used just nothing but sugar. I put a newspaper over the tops of my frames, and then put the sugar on top. I check on them every once in a while, see what they're doing. That seems to work.
So the bees used to have the water source to this hole.
Good question.
Can we get the mic, because I can't hear? Can you use the mic? Yeah.
But of course, you got a really good question. Do we need a water source for the bees to take advantage of the sugar? What do you guys think?
Yes.
In the wintertime, they don't, because they've already got nectar or whatever in the hive, right?
You don't need to put a container of water in your hive.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to introduce water into your hive in the wintertime.
Want the natural condensation, get the moisture.
You bet.
That's what I was reading.
That would work. Yeah. What do you think?
I would say if you start feeding now in September your hives, you can use a block of sugar, but you need to have a water source close by so that they can dissolve the sugar, right? Yeah, of course, in the winter, bees are balled up; they are not active at all. So then it doesn't matter if you have sugar on top of your hives or not. Okay, so you need to use the temperatures above, I would say, 65 degrees Fahrenheit when there is activity to work with the bees.
Maybe back to Mr. Cannon.
Amazon has Hive Alive. What you were showing us, the Hive Alive is on Amazon.
Oh, it is?
So do you give that to them instead of sugar water?
No. I give that to them when I don't want to put any water in the hive.
Okay.
Okay, when it gets cold, you really got to be careful with your bees. injects more moisture into your hive. So then is when we go to the sugar or a pollen pack, okay?
That is also why in autumn, early autumn, you go to a 2-to-1 solution, right? So that they can concentrate that solution below 20% and cap it and use it as storage.
Yes, sir.
Is there a negative to the solid sugar at any time of the year? Why is that not just the standard? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
They have to dissolve it.
It's not a stimulant.
It's just enough to keep them alive.
It's just enough to keep them alive. So that would be kind of an emergency feed? Okay. Questions? Thoughts?
If you add a box or super above that and put the jars in there, does that make the bees work harder during the winter to keep that hive warm or cool or whatever they do?
It would if I would think it would if I left it on. But as soon as it gets cold, all that's coming off.
They heat the ball. They don't heat the hive.
The bees don't heat the space like we do. The bees cluster.
Right.
The cluster keeps the bees warm. Inside bees are eating, and the outside bees are insulation.
Mhm.
And then they rotate, take turns doing that.
Would you like to come over here? Thank you, appreciate it. Does that answer the question?
Okay, let's move on. Okay. Other options to feed and support colonies. Okay, move honey frames to bee nukes, packages, splits, or swarm boxes. So if you have a very strong hive with a lot of honey, you can take some frames out and support the hives that are weaker. Yeah, so remove the honey frames in the fall between hives, so there are plenty and others that are shorter reserves. Can do the same if some hives have large pollen stores, right? Because remember, we don't want to give only honey, we also want to have enough pollen so that the queen can lay in early spring or maybe in late summer. Use pollen substitutes placed in the top bars of the brood box. Again, this is what Ed mentioned. Okay, in September, excellent moment to feed the bees, give some pollen substitutes so that you get enough young brood that brings the hive through the winter, and then you can start with a strong hive in early spring.
Another option that we utilize a lot in Tallahassee, I would see, is that we would buy honey frames from other beekeepers in the area that may have surplus and just take a fully capped frame both sides from a beekeeper, like 1 or 2, to kind of add to the hive and be that food source, especially when you're running low and bees didn't build up like you want them to in a certain amount of time. So if we have that resource, that neighbor that has those extra honey frames and they're willing to sell you some and give you some, that's also a great option to kind of get down these points as well.
Okay, Xavier, on.
So yeah, like we mentioned earlier, using interest producers to make that opening smaller. There's less of an area that bees have to guard from intruders and anybody that's trying to come in directly. Being the robbers in that case. Like I mentioned also, a hive that's been debilitated due to robbing, or just weak in general, try to combine it with another hive. And so that way you have that one hive you can worry about getting strong instead of having one that's failing and then one that's maybe on its way out. And to relocate the weaker hive as well in your area to kind of help out. And as far as the new one, so we definitely disguise the entrance with an anti-robber screen or wet towel. That's how it works. Because the robber bees fly directly into the hive and directly out. And of course, don't place open dishes with honey near the hives. That definitely help out a lot to discourage that robbing. And this one set up for anti-robbing screen. Haven't used them much myself, but they're definitely effective when robbing is your concern.
Okay, so what happens here is we leave a very small opening over here, so the robber bees smell the honey and they go straight in. So now you have this screen, and then the bees that belong to this hive they will find a way to get inside. So they will find the opening on top, and they come down, yeah, and go back into the hive. So they will figure out in a day probably how to get into the hive. But the robber bees, they go in and straight out. And with this screen, you cannot do that. So that's why it's anti-robbing.
They're going in and getting out fast because they know they're not supposed to be there.
Right.
You know what they do wrong. So what's happening here? This is really robbing. Right? And you see on the bottom, okay, you see already the wax of the destroyed combs, which is typically when you have robbers in your colony. Okay? Conclusions? Roy, you want to do those?
Yep. One of the things that I like to do, and I'm starting this time of year, is I want to find out how much stores my bees have really got. So I'll go back behind the hive, and I'll lift that back end up. If I feel like it's got enough stores, it's heavy, okay? If it's pretty light, okay, we got a problem here, folks. So I'm gonna start feeding. Okay? I'll do that. Like one of the slides early on said, what was it? 40 pounds for a, kind of like a medium super full is enough going into the wintertime here. Personally, I like a little more than that. Okay, I like a little bit heavy that's in there. That way I know they're gonna be good. And then January, I'm coming back and I'm doing it again. How are they doing? Do I need to feed them? If they need feed, they're gonna get some kind of a pollen pad, okay? Know how much reserves they have in the store. Get in your hives. What you can do as a new beekeeper, go out there, get in your hives, look, find out how many frames of honey are kept, how much is in there. Then come back, lift up that back end of that hive. So that you're familiar with what it feels like when now you've had a visual of what's in there, okay? Lift up the back of that hive, okay? That way, educate yourself on your hives and what's going on in your area, okay?
And maybe, Roy, if we have another month with high temperatures, the bees will draw down the reserves very fast. Okay, so you have to do this regularly, checking the weight of the hive.
Yeah, good. I'm doing it regularly, at least once a week. Okay. I'm going out there just finding out what's going on. Right now, my hives are getting light. That's why I'm feeding over it. I'm kind of discouraged. Here we've had some rains, and I expected some blooming to come up. There's just one bush in my wife's yard that the bees really like. It just popped open, and they're covered with bees today. Okay. So now I'm going to watch. For some reason, up there in my neighborhood, we just haven't got much. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So check your hives. How heavy are they? Okay. Feed on time at the end of the summer and leave enough supers on top. We've already talked about that. Everybody understand? Make sure you got enough food in your hives for going into winter. Many feeding options available, and choose the one that's easiest for you. Okay. The older I get, you know, I'm not going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting. Okay. But when I was younger, I was willing to try just about anything. What's going to work for you? What's going to work for your bees? Yes, sir.
Oh, I was just laughing at your comment.
Okay.
About being younger, I was just laughing.
You're feeling it too, aren't you? Yeah, a bunch of us are. Okay. Many hives in the early spring have gone through all their reserves. You bet. And this can happen. You can get a nice 50-degree day in January where the wind's not blowing, the sun's shining. Get out there. Take a look at it. What's going on? How much have they got left? Do I need to feed? How are they going to do? Okay. If you've got a hive that was really good back in November and now here in January, it's, where'd my bees go? have to consider maybe combining that with another hive just to see what bees you got left. Okay? Comments, thoughts? This man.
Okay, so I take some of my frames, my honeycomb and freezer. Does that affect the honey at all? Like, in other words, I put them in the freezer to get them back to the bees since I'm here doing it. But I'm wondering, is that, I know it kills all the, whatever is on there. You know, I was worried about whether it affects the honey.
It's gonna be real hard.
So,
I don't think they need to work on it. You can put that right.
You wanna thaw it first, obviously.
What would be the difference between the honey patty and your friend honey? The honey's got everything in it that you need. So that may be a good idea. Thank you. Yes, sir.
What she said is what we have finally concluded, we had so many problems with Robbie trying to give back the bees the empty supers. We just take, after we spit them out, we freeze them, and then we put them in bags, like we do for the winter. And then in the spring, when they start needing them back, they've got that comb with a little bit of honey on it, kind of stimulates. I mean, it's a win-win situation.
You got a lot of freezer space.
Well, no, you just put it in there and then you take, for a day, and then you bag it. Yeah.
You know, that's a good idea. I haven't heard of that. Thank you guys for bringing that up. Anything else? Yes, sir.
When do you close the screen bottles?
Say it again.
When do you close the screen bottles?
Never.
I leave mine open all year round. Now, what I do, in the hot summertime, I'll put popsicle sticks underneath the lid, just to get a little air circulation. I'll take those popsicle sticks out when it starts getting a little bit cooler. Okay, so you don't have as much flowing through there. I leave my, I don't go back to the solid bottom board.
Heat's always stratified, so within the hive, the higher you go, in general, the higher the temperature. So if you want to insulate, I would do it from the outside, but I would leave the bottom open. Now, if you have very low temperature, you say below 0 degrees, and you want to put in your screen bottom board, just to, to help them out, you can do that for a few days. No problem.
Like the plastic mic check board, just like that.
Yeah, but not too long, because you do not want to increase humidity now. You need to have a certain ventilation.
I had a colleague in Minnesota, wrapped his hives, left the screen bottom boards open. Condensation, when it dripped, it went right out.
We had a similar case in Tallahassee. We used all spring bottom boards, and pretty much the way I was taught was, if we have at least 3 days of frost, our bees are gonna pretty much kill over without wrapping. And so we try to predict if that hard 3-day frost is gonna happen or not. We definitely were insulated on the outside. We wrapped them, but yeah, that spring bottom board we left it open.
What do you wrap it with?
We want to hear what you use.
Insulation blanket. There's actually a blanket that is made. I think it's marketed as a bee blanket, but it's really just like an insulated blanket and insulated blanket and duct tape.
Does anybody wrap their hives here at this location? I don't think we really need to. Do you?
It's very cold.
Okay.
What do you consider very cold?
Yeah, it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
How much?
That's cold.
0.
Yes.
What we got earlier this year.
I'll just put some isolation on the top of my house.
We had a winter a couple of years ago, it got down to -15.
Yes.
We didn't wrap anything, we had open bottom screens, and we didn't lose any for freezing. Which is kind of amazing. We thought we had probably lost them all.
It all depends how strong is your hive.
Right.
If you have a very strong hive, they can keep the heat inside, they can keep the queen nice. But if you have a medium and weak hive, we need to support them. You go to the Ukraine. In the Ukraine, okay, bless them, they have sheds where they put the hives inside. Okay, and then inside some openings, so the bees go basically into the shed, and you can even keep in that shed a certain temperature. Okay? Now, they use it in extreme climates.
Yeah, all the post-Soviet countries used to do that. They're starting to learn that they're getting a lot more chalk brood, which is a fungus. And nosema is real prevalent there. They're starting to move out.
Too much humidity.
Mhm.
Well, the shed that I visited, there was no top cover. This was only wire. So there was quite good ventilation in those hives.
In Armenia, they were covering them up with blankets and putting them inside, and same in Kazakhstan. And I went and cut some of their bottom boards out, put it in screens, and said, leave it outside this winter, I'll be back next year. You can beat me up if you want, because these were better next year.
Good ideas. All right. Okay, Roberts, by closing up business,
What about, queens, where do you take those out?
they're gone. When I first harvest, create excluders out.
And you just let the queen move up into the top part of the hive and?
She's probably not going to, now I'm talking about what I harvest in June. Okay. I don't harvest late in the summer, in the fall. I want to go into winter with fat bees. I want to leave them all the food that they can handle. That's just me, okay? And I learned that from some experienced beekeepers, okay? Going to winter with fat bees, am I going to miss out on some honey? Well, do I have enough in my cabinet for my family? Yeah, okay. But that's personal preference. You know, like I said at the very beginning of this, you ask 3, 4, 5 different beekeepers the same question, you're going to get different answers because of experience, what they've seen in their yard, and what they've heard from other people, like going over into Ukraine, that area. My gosh, that's great.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan, yeah. Did I say
Mongolia, these also go to Mongolia.
Yeah.
I prefer to double deep, take all my super soft, because I want to treat against mites in December or January. Okay? So to start off the season with the lowest count of mites possible. If I keep a super on, I try to have it as full as possible. I know that the queen and the bees will move up, so in early spring I need to time it, and when the weather starts getting better, or when I start feeding the hive, and mimicking honey flow, I probably need to shake the bees down and put the queen excluder in, because I do not want the queen to lay in my supers, because she makes a mess of it. Okay? So it's difficult. This year I'm forced to keep the super on top, at least one, because they didn't catch them, and they are full. So I will just let them consume everything. And then,
Now, you keep just one brood box. What do you do? I'm looking for another bit.
Against my better judgment, I leave my queen excluders in. And the reason I say against my better judgment, I had a friend when I was beekeeping in France, that he left his queen excluders in. The cluster went up because it's warmer up higher. The queen was left down at the bottom and lost all of his colonies. I've not had that problem. I've done it for 50 years now, and I've always left queen excluders in, and it hasn't happened. But every year I'm nervous.
okay, it's 8 o'clock. It's time for Jay now to talk.
We can keep on, I mean, I won't take 15 minutes.
Okay, you just tell us when we need to stop. Okay?
People are learning this.
So that there's enough money to load the reading for the cluster.
Questions? something else you said? Oh, no.
Okay, then I would say, Roy and Bill, thank you very much. Where are you from?
He's obviously not local.
I really haven't had a chance to introduce myself to many people in the club, but I'm Xavier Price. I am from Louisville, Arkansas, but we moved out to Augusta, Georgia in '98 military family, and I went up and got my degrees pretty much in Georgia and Florida, so I have a master's in entomology. And before I came here, I was back in Tallahassee working as an apiary technician, and pretty much during my master's, although it was general entomology, I pretty much majored in honeybee health and pest management. And so I became a beekeeper in like 2014. Been considering myself a bee researcher the whole time. To try to really bridge that gap between being a bee researcher and being a beekeeper, there's some things that are missed along the way. And so as I've been going on through my journey, I've been trying to help bridge that gap, get the information out, and kind of bring it down to a level where everybody can understand it and everybody can use like the new technologies that are coming out and things like Ed are doing with the cream rearing. Getting that out to the new beekeepers' minds, and they kind of start with, you have your fundamentals and your foundations, but then looking at the way better beekeeping practices are going. And so coming out here to Arkansas, I work for the USDA, and the branch of that is the NRCS, or Natural Resource Conservation Service. And so my main duty is I'm a grazing land specialist. And on the side, my supervisor, he saw my love for bees and entomology, and so we have a pollinator initiative that NRCS pretty much takes on, and every state has their own branch of NRCS. And so I've been working with pollinator.org and Quill Forever to kind of set up workshops and field days that kind of emphasize pollinators in general, moths, butterflies, all of those, and the native bees as well. But me being a beekeeper, I really focus in on honeybees. And so by night, I'm a regular beekeeper, and by daytime, I'm a grazing land specialist. And so I came out and I found you guys in my first bee club, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And I hope that I can give you knowledge as well as assimilate it. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask me. I love talking about bees and see if they can answer things.
Applause for this.
So are you in Fayetteville now?
No, actually, I'm stationed in Fort Smith.
Fort Smith. Do you know, does the NCRS, do they still have the conservation camp for the kids in the summer? Uh-huh.
I think back up with the African. We have people out there trying to get that established.
Hey folks, let's have our drawings and,
Right, we've got a drawing here, so you want to do that first, Maureen?
we've got three items to raffle off tonight.
Okay, so we